somehow. I see, that's my fault. I did it to myself. All right, any screening? No luck? All right, let's see, what's the market look like? Charts. Ooh, we're turning back up. Not too long for the, well, we got an hour, so we'll have to figure out what to do for the hour while we wait for the Fed. Then it's all going to be about the Fed, I imagine. Lots of stuff to talk about. Dan can see, finally. Boy, it's only a minute later. It feels to me like it was that felt like much more than a minute. All right. So here, I'm going to go make some tea. You guys can contemplate the awesomeness of our debt. I'll be back in a minute. Luckily, it's cold tea, so it doesn't take long. All right, we're back. Got a shaky, shaky, shake, and we're all set. All right, let's see. Oh, all right, I'm not going to discuss that. That's horrifying. This is why the Fed can't just keep raising rates. At a certain point, they're going to scream bloody murder because they're going to make the interest payment insane. I mean, even now, today we're hitting 4%, and I said I wouldn't talk about it, but it really is driving a lot of stuff. I mean, you got to realize it's like a major driver that nobody wants to talk about. You've got 31 trillion in debt, right? Times 0.04% is $1.2 trillion. Okay, so that's the Fed funds rate. That's below what notes and things are going to sell for in the future. So currently, our debt service interest is interest paid. No. There it is, 450 million. So what was that? 1.2 billion. Sorry, 1.2 trillion. Oh, it's such a big number. I can't even say it. 31183. All right, and that's times 0.04%. That's 4%. Is 1.247 billion. So it's 1.2 trillion dollars. It's 1.2 trillion, and we're currently minus 450. Minus 450 is 800 billion more dollars is required to service the same debt that we have now. The entire defense contract is less than $800 billion. The entire Defense Department is less than $800 billion. That's bullshit, though. That does not include veterans benefits. That's a big thing, because in reality, including veterans benefits and other ancillary services for the war machine, we're well over $1 trillion. And so they only count direct defense spending. It's a bullshit number. But anyway, besides that, here's Medicare, Medicaid. And don't forget, now Social Security is being raised 10%, so there's 200 billion. There's not 200. There's 100 billion right there at least, and Medicare has to go up. I mean, it can't not go up with all this inflation. That's going to be another 140 billion. So those two guys are going to be 250 billion on top of this 800 billion. Is another trillion something dollars added to the debt. Just the debt service each year just to keep us from going bankrupt. And we're already running $1 trillion deficit. So we're going to be talking about a standard 2-point-something trillion dollar deficit, close to $2.5 trillion deficit. Now, what are you going to cut? You can't. Here's federal spending. Federal spending is $6 trillion. 3 of it is here. 4 of it now is here. All right. So all the other spending combined is only $2 trillion, and we have 2.5, and we have $2.5 trillion of debt service coming up. How are you going to fix it? I'm sorry, not 2.5 trillion, a 2.5 trillion budget deficit. So $6 trillion here. These guys are going to be 4 trillion of it. So what are you going to cut down a $2.5 trillion deficit when you're only spending $6 trillion only? It's not doable. And when I used to consult businesses, I would do the same kind of thing, and you would run numbers for people and be like, you understand this can't continue, right? Like, they're calling you in because they're having financial troubles, to consult. And you say to them, well, look, based on this, based on your number of stores and your number of employees and your potential revenues in a realistic model, not your fantasy model that like you'll magically double prices and everybody will still show up, but in like with a realistic model of what you're going to be able to collect from the people and so on and so forth, you're going to go bankrupt. It's a fact. You have to make drastic changes, and then you have to start thinking, what can we do? What can we cut? Now, in this situation, there's not a lot we can do because we have all these huge obligations that we've already taken on. We're going to end up effectively going bankrupt and reorganizing all this stuff. Now, the problem is this is voluntary spending, but nobody's ever going to cut it. Social Security is what the Republicans want to cut. Their whole plan to balance the budget is to basically eliminate Social Security, or drastically reduce it. And that's how they think they're going to be able to get a handle on the deficit, by simply reneging on the obligations they have to pay people what they've already paid into the system. Same goes for Medicare and Medicaid, of course. They want to just say, well, I'll just privatize it all. So it should all be private. People can pay for their own stuff. And boom, that's problem solved. $2.5 trillion saved. But $2.5 trillion saved, and you've completely destroyed the lives of half the people in this country. Is that a solution? Well, it's a solution. You could also randomly drop nuclear bombs and decrease the population by 50%. But, this is more targeted because you're getting all the poor people. And basically what this is, you're basically killing the poor. Through neglect and what have you. That's basically the Republican plan at the moment, is just to say, well, screw those guys. But it's not just the poor, because look, I don't know how many people. I do know. It's ridiculous. I don't know how many people have perfect families where every single member of your family is a success and blah 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 blah. But in reality, I talk to lots and lots of people who have money, and they are telling me about all the people that they have to carry. That's a new topic of conversation. How many people are you carrying? Well, I got this mother, I got this cousin here, I got my brother, I got this uncle, I got this other person. People who are well off are carrying a lot of people these days. And the more people that the government throws under the bus, the more people you end up carrying anyway. So there's a burden that kicks back to you to some extent when this happens, but it's not obviously nothing compared to raising your taxes 50%. So you should always consider that. You only have to help out the people you specifically want to help out. But that's also become a very big thing. I can't believe how many people. It's a constant conversation. It really is. If people start comparing like how many people they're funding in their families. Because there's honestly like no way people can't live. It's happening everywhere. People cannot live under these conditions, and it's not going to get any better. And it's certainly not going to get any better if the Republicans come in and start messing with all this stuff. So we'll see. We will see. And that's not a political commercial. You can vote for whoever you want. To me, it just, it's all, but to me, it's all about the climate anyway. It doesn't, I don't think it matters much how many people you kill now when we only have this probable 7-year window to make a turn on climate change before it becomes completely catastrophic. The UN, we didn't talk about this, but there was a UN just this weekend, the UN climate change, whatever they call it. November 6th. Oh, it's going on right now. Oh no, it's coming up. Oh, I see. So this United Nations Climate Change Conference, I guess I've been reading advanced papers on it. They're horrifying. So I guess we're going to hear more about it next month. Horrifying. I mean, really, really horrifying. What is this? Reports on climate change. What's in the reports? Yeah, these. I mean, this is the science on climate change. Yeah, anyway, it's depressing. I don't even want to talk about it. And if we don't, you know, and again, if we bring in government that doesn't do anything about it for 2 years, and then we elect a president, a Republican president, and they put it back for 4 more years, that's it. You know, that's it. We, you know, 8 years ago, we were supposed to, 12 years ago, no, 10 years ago now, we were supposed to start with the Paris climate thing, and Trump ripped it up when he got elected. And so now we're 10 years behind, and we don't have 10 years left. And everybody's behind. All the countries are behind because we didn't participate, and most of the countries said fuck it. And then we had a financial crisis, and then we had as an excuse not to do anything, and then we had the COVID crisis as an excuse not to do anything. And we really we're so far behind the ball, it's horrifying. And we're seeing mass die-offs. I mean, the crab population dropped 90%. They're worried about insects, which is weird because you think insects will survive everything, but they're very worried about insects crushing out. And then what? I mean, we've already seen the bees are on the brink of extinction, and that's, I don't even know what the backup plan is for that. I guess you got to go around manually pollinating plants yourself. I guess they're gonna have to pay people to go around pollinating plants. But I mean, you know, when's it gonna end, right? It's like, how much stuff are we gonna be able to do to back up the things that are supposed to be done naturally on this planet? So that's bad, but let's not worry about that. All right. Anyway, let's see what the headlines are. We know we're waiting on the Fed. That's the most important thing happening right now. Oh, we get the EIA report. I forgot about that. Petroleum. Whoop. That. So oil popped up. Where's oil? Oil. Here's oil. Oil popped back to 90 on a not very spiffy report. The report showed, wait, October 28th, right? Okay. So the report showed that inventories decreased by 3.1 million barrels for the week. So there's a 3.1 million barrel draw and a 1.3 million barrel decrease in gasoline, and distillates are basically flat. Although it's interesting, the distillates were not a draw because diesel. Everybody's freaking out about diesel, and meanwhile there was no draw on distillates. Here you go, SPR. So that's interesting. Only 2 million barrels were released from the SPR, from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. That's not much. We still exported 4 million barrels a day out of the country of petroleum products, which is insane. And production-wise, we produced about the same amount, and nothing else is a big deal. So that's all I wanted to see, was just what's going on here. But, you know, we're still exporting 28 million barrels a week, which is, you know, we consume 20 million a day. So it's well, 140, 28 into 140, it's 20%. So 20% of our week's entire production is being exported. And that's the only reason we're not swimming in oil in the US. And we're doing it for good reasons, because Europe is screwed and we're exporting oil wherever we can to all of our allies to help out during the war. That's fine. We've taken 200 million barrels out of our strategic petroleum reserve, effectively shipped it out of the country at a rate of 28 million barrels a week. Actually, more than that is going out, but we don't use that much. That's the secret everybody hides, is that we don't actually consume that much oil anymore. I mean, still a lot, but we don't, we don't consume what we used to consume. And now we're shipping it out, and we have the production facilities are still here, so we're using them instead to create oil or petroleum products to export. Other places don't have the refining capacity we do. So for the most part, we're taking our oil, we're sending it out of the country to help our allies during this all this Russian bullshit that's going on. Nothing wrong with that. That's what strategic petroleum reserves are for. But at some point, we're going to have to replenish it, and at that point, then we become the U.S. government becomes a demand for oil. Now, if that demand out of 140 million barrels a week is 2 million barrels or 3 million barrels a week to start filling it back up, that's really not a big deal. And in 1 year, we would fill up 150 million barrels back of the strategic petroleum reserve. And that would take us back to 550 out of 600, and 600 is basically full. So we're not in a crisis, it's not a big deal, and it can all be dealt with. So if the war with Russia ends, the oil prices are going to come down dramatically. And what's going on today and yesterday actually with oil, futures, energy, oil, not Brent. Doesn't matter, either one's the same though. So what's been going on the last 2 days with oil is there's two things happening. First of all, China is supposedly going to go ease their restrictions again. They feel like they've got the COVID under control again, and it's really crazy though. Open, close, open, close. So at the moment, they're starting to ease restrictions. That means demand comes back a bit in China. So people look at that and say, oh, good, boost to oil. And also, there's some bullshit about Iran attacking Saudi Arabia. There's like a lot of chatter about that there's an imminent attack by Iran on Saudi Arabia. That would be so massively destabilizing for the energy markets. That would lead us to a whole other crisis. The whole thing is probably staged to drive up the price of oil, but that's the excuse. And they're just pulling out all the stops, so trying to get this stuff happening. Now, Tom says, what does Tom say? Do you think the stories on Seeking Alpha about possible China pivot on the handling of COVID and isn't that interesting? I was just talking about that. So yes, I do think that the Iran and Saudi thing is rent a rebel. I think they're just trying to drive up prices. It benefits both countries. Both countries export a huge amount of oil and would love to see the price of oil as high as possible. So you're going to get cooperation from the Saudis, and they can start rattling sabers and doing all kinds of crap if this is working. They're not very sophisticated. If something works, they start doing it. They're like, it's like, yes, oh yes, we are very worried about an attack. In fact, we will demand such and such from Iran. And then Iran will say something, and then every time something works, they'll keep ratcheting it up. Eventually though, you get to the point where it's, it's like, when you keep escalating like that, though, at a certain point, everybody loses interest because it's just talk. It's like Putin. Putin made a mistake by talking about nuking, using nuclear weapons. Once you talk about using nuclear weapons, you've already maximized the tension, and honestly, unless you actually push the button, everything else is bullshit. That's the problem with threats. When you're a country and you threaten something like that, like Putin threatens to cut this off and to do that and to blockade this and do that, he doesn't do it though. He just talks about doing it, and you feel it's a valid threat because he's capable of doing it. But the problem is you ascribe to Putin the same kind of credibility that, that you would ordinarily ascribe to a U.S. president, because we just had a U.S. president who would say all kinds of bullshit that never did. But normally, if a U.S. president would say something, he would pretty much mean it. The U.S. doesn't make a lot of idle threats. prior to Trump, and hopefully not after Trump either. But you know, it's not, you know, they usually U.S. presidents are very careful about saying things that they don't intend to follow through on. And you kind of think Putin would be in the same way. The European leaders are the same way. They don't just start threatening people and saying they're going to do stuff. But Putin does. Putin's like happy to say, oh yeah, we could use our nuclear weapons if we get pissed off, so you better shut up. That's great, but if you don't actually do it and you keep saying it, nobody takes you seriously. And you lose the threat. The threat is now no longer valid. Now you can actually do it, and the question is Putin that insane? That's the question. And Putin is apparently has, I think they said multiple sclerosis. I think it's something like that. Either has Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis and cancer at the same time, which is not fun. So he's in a lot of pain. He's probably, I would imagine he's probably dying. I don't think if he had curable cancer, it would still be a thing, because it's been like more than 6 months of talking about Putin having cancer. If it was anything that could be treated, I'm pretty sure they would have aggressively treated it by now. So I think he's just basically consolidating his power as much as possible so he can handpick his replacements and make sure the people he wants taken care of are taken care of before he, you know, voluntarily or involuntarily ends up stepping down. You know, who knows how long though? You never know how long somebody's going to last, no matter how sick they are. But then that goes back to the question though: is he crazy and sick, and will he lash out and use nuclear weapons? It's hard to imagine, you know, having been a top level guy in Russian intelligence, doesn't seem to be losing his marbles. And you say, is that how anybody really wants their legacy to be? You know, is that really how you want to be remembered in history? Is that, you know, when you have the ability to, you know, Putin was a big Russian leader. He'll have a mark on history and so on and so forth. Is it going to help his accomplishments in life to nuke Ukraine? What's he going to gain? He'll just be vilified forever in history as a madman and a heart. Everything he's ever done is going to be washed away in the fact that he did something horrific at the end of his life. I don't see it. I don't see what it's almost inconceivable for anyone to want to do something like that. It really is. You know, I mean, you know, we don't, just because you can doesn't mean you do. You know, and by the way, that's true of so much stuff, because it goes back to, it's like terrorism too. Okay, how easy is it to take a backpack into a movie theater that's filled with explosives and explode it and kill 200 people? Anywhere in the world, we have these places where people gather every day in a tight enclosed space, and they have schedules, and they have schedules. There's no impediment to going in and doing something. People don't do that. Somebody shot up a theater with Batman a couple of years ago, and that was horrible. But it's, you know, you could take a gun to the supermarket, you could take a gun to a shopping mall, you can do anything. People don't do that because people are not that crazy. They're not as crazy as they like to make it look. But the problem is, in the movies and on TV, it's interesting, or whatever the word would be, but it's interesting to see people who are that crazy and what they do and what they could do and what the effect is on the society outside of your normal scope of existence. They're making a movie about it because it's outlandish. It's bigger than life. And I think a lot of people forget that, and a lot of people think everything they see on these shows is real, especially when the shows are called FBI this and CSI that and whatever. These people think that that's what's going on in the world. It's like, oh yeah, there's mass murderers everywhere. There's so many people doing this Jeffrey Dahmer thing. that's on TV now. People were just talking about that last night. And these are reasonably intelligent people, I would think, who who I know in my area. And they're having this conversation about Jeffrey Dahmer and how scary it is, and how these, and oh, the world is such a crazy place, and blah blah blah. And it was like 20, 30 years ago. I don't even remember anymore. It's a long time ago. This one guy did this one terrible thing. And it's not like this is what happens in Middle America, or this is what happens, all over the country. It's something happened once that somebody did. Jack the Ripper, right? Happened 100 years ago, and people still talk about, oh, crazy people running around with knives and whatever. It's like, no, there was this guy. It was a huge deal. Everybody talked about it for 100 years. That's it. There wasn't another and another and another and another. Yes, there were other serial killers doing other things, but not anywhere near the extent to which people seem to believe they actually happen. Even shooting deaths, right? So shooting deaths per year. Okay, so shooting deaths per year. United States. Okay. 40,000 people died by guns in the US. Okay, so out of 4 million people, 40,000 people, out of 4 million people who died. So it's 40,000 divided by 4, 1, 2, 3. 1%. So 1% of all the people who died of being shot. All right, or as it said, actually 1.2%, right? So it's 12 out of 100,000. Well, wait, that would be 1 out of 1,000. Oh, that's deaths per 100,000. Oh, cool, because not everybody dies. That's why. So out of 4 million people who die, 40,000 people die of being shot. You don't want that number. That's not good. You don't want 12 people out of 100,000 to die. That's let's see, that's 10 out of 10,000, 1 out of 1,000. So 1 out of 1,000 people get shot and die per year. So now, if you live 100 years, you have a pretty good chance of being shot. But the thing is, and this is what's really weird, because the thing is, no, that's not what happens here or here or here or here. It is what happens here. This is where it happens. Is it not so much here, not so much here, not around here? So it depends where you live. And I guess that's one of the things that, you talk about the East Coast liberals and shit like that. It's like, I'm sorry, but we find this, and that's me, we find this unacceptable. We don't understand this. We do not understand this at all. This seems insane to us. This is like this is why we are at this huge number. It's because of these people, not here. We hardly get anybody shot. And so it's hard to relate to, it's an incredible thing. So that's I'm an East Coast liberal. I'm just like, what the hell? Now, here's the funny thing, though. 59% of the people who are getting killed by guns are suicides. So, that doesn't really count, frankly. I mean, it's terrible that somebody commits suicide by shooting themselves, but now it's only 17,000 people who are dying randomly by guns. What's this? Oh. Look at homicides catching up. Look at homicide catching up. Good job, homicide. All right. I don't know where they come up with these numbers. That's weird. Gun violence costs, I don't understand the concept. Anyway, wasn't really the point of it. What we were talking about was statistics. So anyway, ratcheting up the expectations on the war. So we were talking about whether or not the Iran and Saudi thing is real. Probably not. Probably just bullshit. And then as to the Chinese COVID thing, now people are talking about China changing their policy. I don't see any indication of that. Xi got reelected, unprecedented third term. He's got no one to answer for. He removed Hu Jintao from his side at the convention, showing he has absolutely nobody of equal power to him. So I don't see why he's suddenly going to say my policy was wrong. He should say this is no good. We can't do this, because how are you going to maintain it? You know, the rest of the world is living their lives and moving on essentially, and we're just accepting COVID as one of the ways you die now. You know, it's just it's a thing that we have to live with. And frankly, for me, I advocated that policy early in COVID. You know, while I wanted precautions taken and masks to be worn and so on and so forth, I said at some point you got to live your life. You're not going to eradicate this disease. It's going to be like the flu, and it's going to be around for a long time. Once you have vaccines, though, we should have embraced it sooner, as far as saying, you know, this is it. And I live in Florida. We did embrace it sooner. We never, you know, I mean, in Florida, we never took it seriously at all. But when the vaccines came out, people, again, I wouldn't say Florida is just as segregated as the country is. Central Florida, I don't think half the people in Central Florida got their vaccines. But down here in Southern Florida, I would say almost everybody I know got vaccinated. And so, yeah, you know, we kept the restaurants open and we kept the places open, and everybody went out and did their normal things. And you know, when you went to the supermarket, you would have to wear a mask and maintain social distancing. In fact, there are still on the floors of the supermarkets, there's still circles that say, you know, this far apart, and things like that. Nobody does it, but it says it. But people were still going to Disney. People were still doing stuff in Florida, which was unrecommended, and it wasn't that bad. That was the indication, right? It's like, okay, we're going to be a petri dish and be the experimental group to see what happens if you pay no attention to COVID restrictions. And it turned out it wasn't that terrible. But you know, what China's trying to do is have no COVID, and the problem is, at this point, they have no COVID, but the you know, incredibly low number of total cases. I mean, just, you know, insanely low. You know, we've had, I don't even remember the number anymore. I think there's got to be, have we had 1 million people die yet? Been so long since I've looked at the map. Johns Hopkins COVID tracker. La-da-da. So 6.5 million total deaths. US, yep, 1 million. These are, oh, cases. No, what? That's 28 day. How do I get it to say not 28 day? Oh, totals. Okay, it's right here. Total. What? Oh, 1 million deaths. There you go. Sorry. Okay, so 1 million. Yeah, we have 1 million deaths. That's horrible. 1 million out of 7 million in the world. In America, are dead. You know, but China, if we can find it, I don't know how. Chile. That's not China. It's not your screen, it's my screen too. It's like blurry when you drop it down. It's kind of annoying. China. I'm relying on my magical eyesight to pick it out. Oh, nope. Cuba. Oh, this is crazy. 28 days 0. Shit. Oop. Oh, well. Whatever. China's out here somewhere. Why can't I call up? I wonder if I can search. CHIN. Huh, look at that. It worked. All right, China. So, yeah, 15,000. We have 1 million dead. They have 15,000 dead total. 226. Oh, there's a good comparison. 184,000 cases and 226. Yeah. Yeah, 200. Okay, so they have 226 deaths in the last month, and oh, frick. So 226 dead in the last month, 15,000 total, 180, only 3 million total cases in the whole country, and 184,000 cases in the last month, and we've had, well, that's bad. So they've had 10% as many cases as we've had. You know, but the problem with China is they have a low immune response. Well, I wonder if you could touch on one of these, if that's helpful. No. Oh, yeah, something happened in South Korea. And there you go. So we can pop it up that way if we can find China. Hong Kong, China. That's not the same as China. Oh, that's interesting because that's Hong Kong. Oh, but is each little dot a thing? Oh, you got to look. Anyway, so that was the China total. So the China total is basically Hong Kong. There's all the cases in China right there. The rest of China, you can see very tiny, tiny dots, barely visible. Anyway, so, you know, COVID's still around, but the problem is, there's the problem China's having there. I mean, having 10% as many cases as the US is horrifying, because we are still really, really bad in the entire world. Look at this, 10,000 people dead. Nobody's touching that number. So, you know, we are, quote, living with COVID, but that's the way we're living with it. We're just accepting the fact that 10,000 people a month are dying of COVID. It's just a new thing that you die from now. And the number of infections, 1 million a month still. But we've had 97 million official infected. But the other thing is nobody reports it anymore. So, you know, people get COVID. If you've gotten your shots, thank God, right? If you've gotten your shots, you get COVID. You have a cold or a flu for a couple of days, and you're over it. So nobody even bothers. You know, there's nothing to do. People don't panic. They don't go to their doctor. They don't do anything. They just say, "No, I'll probably be fine," because I know dozens and dozens of people who've had it and gotten over it now. So people are just no longer worried about it. You don't go to the doctor for the flu. That's why it's hard to count flu cases too. But anyway, so it's still a thing. It's still with us, and we're just kind of, you know, in the U.S. we're pretty much ignoring it now, which is, it's weird, but not that weird. I mean, you know, we die of heart attacks, we die of cancer, we die of that. We were talking about gunshots, right? So that's where it is. So it's no 17,000 people die of gunshots and 1 million people die of COVID. So, you know, what are we up in arms about? You always got to pick your battles, right? Oh, soon we get the Fed. So what else is happening? Long-term portfolio. Now this is without the changes that we made, but it's up at 1946. It was over 2 yesterday, but it's at 1946 now. If we go back to the good old days, the long-term portfolio, it was 156. All right, so it was 1.56 a month ago, And we haven't changed. In this case, we haven't done any, none of the changes have been logged because I went away, so nothing got logged in. And so it's 196. So it's up $300,000 in the last since what day was that? October 17th. So that's 2 weeks. So 300,000 bucks in 2 weeks is pretty good, even if it is a 1.5 million portfolio. So I guess it was 20%. So that gained 20%, and that's without the changes. Now the changes, here's the review, are mostly going to be helpful. Like we, these adjustments, well, these are short puts adjustments, so they're not a big deal. Wow, we did a lot of short put adjustments. Ooh, I did not realize how many we changed. Look at that. Well, let's see. So Citi improved, obviously, right? So in a couple of weeks, Citi has improved. Toyota has improved, even though they've gave some nasty guidance. ISRG. Oh, I see what I did. We took the W puts. Oh, that was smart. Wow, look at me. So we had Wayfair. It was left over from a bear position. We had the puts, and I said, let's roll them to something we actually want. And I said, let's roll them. So of all the things I picked, I said, let's roll them to ISRG. And look what happened to ISRG. So we sold the 15 of the 2025 160 puts when it was at 160 or 175, whatever it was at the time. And we sold those for 20 bucks a pop, and now we're at 246. That's great. Holy cow. So that's a great example. That's something you have to think outside the box. We were stuck with these W puts, and we don't want W. We don't like it. We never liked it. It was part of a short play that was left over. So we were never. It's never like we ever wanted to hold W long, but we just kept the short puts because we kept thinking it would bounce, and it never did. So at this point, we're like, well, I don't want to keep it just because there's nothing there. There's no reason I think it should be that much better. But I do think SPG was ridiculously low, and I do think that ISRG was ridiculously low. So we took the same money and we split it up over two positions. There were 69 here. We took 65,000 on two new positions. And now those positions, I don't mind owning the stock in down the road. You don't have to roll to the same stock. It's a really important concept, okay? You don't have to stick with a stock. It's not about that. It's, you guys know, I think in terms of allocation blocks, right? I've got an allocation block of money. That allocation block is in this stock right now. If it's not working, I'm happy to throw out the stock. Don't care about the stock, I care about the money. So if I'm down $50,000 on a $200,000 allocation block and I don't like the stock anymore, get a new stock. Now I've got $150,000. I need to make my $50,000 back. And once that's back, then I've got my $200,000 allocation block again for the next play. It's the money that matters, not the stocks. Oh, JP Morgan, we added long calls to that, and that was well timed also. Oh, I'm so happy. Look at that. So anyway, none of these things are being counted in the portfolio. The portfolio is going to be spectacular once we actually log in the changes. Cleveland Cliffs, that didn't go so well so far. Disney, I don't know. Disney just got the shutdown. I can't imagine that they're looking good. Let's see, but today they might be open again. Oh, not bad. You know what? That's pretty good considering they just got shut down in Shanghai. That's very nice. That's weekly too. How's Google? Ew. HBI, HPQ, oh, they pop nicely. Wow. Getting a really high percentage of winners on these. IBM, oh God. Wow, look at that. Oh, JP Morgan again, except we already did that one. KHC, nice pop on KHC. Don't know what Levi did. Logitech picking up. Here's up Meta. Ooh. Okay, see, Meta's a bad one. We need to roll the 150 calls to a spread. See, that was great though. See, thank God. We had uncovered 150 calls and we rolled them to a spread that's fully covered. So we're going to get a lot less of a loss than we would have gotten if we just left the 150 calls. And we've got a lot more time to recover. So we'll see. mRNA, I said we'd be happy to buy back the, I think we should be happy to make a fairly quick 45,000. We bought back the short calls. Oh, I see. So we bought back the short calls and then it went up. Still good, all good. And I said, why take the chance on earnings when I think they're underpriced? Buy back the short calls. I think we should be happy to make 6 months, $45,000. What the hell was that? Buy back the short calls. Oh, these short calls. Oh, okay. The 2024 short calls. We had 60 longs. I see what we did. So it isn't better. It isn't going to be better. We bought back the short calls because I said they're January 200s in 2024, and if they had popped a lot on earnings, we would be sorry because we already were up $45,000. So why risk it? And then what happened? So then they had earnings. Oh, no, that worked out though. Okay, so we bought back the short calls. Now there are no short calls, but now we can sell more short calls when we feel it's done going up, and we'll be back on track. So we bought them back while we were up. That was smart, turns out. And here's Micron. We rolled that. Netflix came back nicely. We sold 11,000 more. Oh, well, we didn't do anything with it. Oh, Pfizer. What do we do with Pfizer? We brought back the short calls. Good move. Yes. Oh, Paramount rolling the 10 short 40 puts to more of the 2025. Who did that? Lurch, right? Lurch from the atmosphere. That's not good. Paramount just got knocked down 10% today. PHM, no changes. Wow. Then suddenly I make no changes at all. Very fickle. STLA, we don't know how they did. SWK did not have a great time, but they're holding the line. AT&T, look at that report. Look at that blast up. Whew. Glad about that one. Target, let's roll the 5 short puts to 10 short puts, and that's working out just fine. Pop back up. Ooh, Tupperware. I thought they just got killed today. This doesn't update. I see. These aren't updates. I'm used to the old ones that used to update. Yeah, Tupperware just got nailed today. I think they're in big trouble. Who doesn't love Tupperware? Wow, yeah, 453. That's not pleasant. That one's going to have to be adjusted. Wow, 757 to 453. Then nothing. Oh, WBA, yeah, I like Walgreens. How are they looking? It's interesting. They just settled the opiate thing. WBA. So Walgreens, CVS, and Walmart settled the, well, they've gone very nicely since then. They settled the opioids. So today they agreed to pay a $5 billion fine. I think it's very unfair. And, not just because I'm a Walgreens investor, but I mean, realistically, what did they do? Opioids are addictive. They never should have been made. They were not only made, but they were pushed by the pharmaceutical companies that were making them, right? As a solution for the doctors. So I understand obviously suing the pharmaceutical companies. I understand suing the doctors that prescribe them, just, taking their kickbacks and whatever by prescribing these drugs that were not really suitable for their patients. Yes, of course, fine those people. But why are we finding the pharmacies who dispense pills that are prescribed by doctors? That's a little weird, right? That's a very weird sort of precedent to be setting that we're doing this. It's like all they did was sell the pills the doctor told them the patients needed to live. I guess in some cases, pharmacies did not have adequate security or whatever, and they didn't control the substance properly like they should have. But that's certain cases, certain times. It's not a broadband settlement thing. $5 billion is a lot of freaking money. Now, Walgreens is paying. The reason Walgreens is up and CVS is up is because they're paying it over Walgreens. For some reason, Walgreens got 15 years and CVS got 10 years. And it's the same $5 billion, so it's weird. But both stocks got a positive reaction to it because at least now you know. Well, there's that point, at least now you know. And for Walgreens, you're talking about $350 million a year. And they make $3 billion a year. So it's only 10% of their earnings. And all they're going to do is raise prices on other stuff to make up for it. So it's not a heavy effect. And Walgreens is trading a ridiculously low price because it was an unknown thing. The settlement was unknown. They were in court. You knew all these guys were going to get persecuted for having anything to do with opioids because the juries have been going against anybody who touched these cases. But so the imagination is run wild and people start thinking all kinds of things. But basically, they're paying $350 million a year going forward now. And they're paying it for 15 years. And obviously, inflation being what it is, right now it's 10% of their earnings. In 5 years, it'll probably be 2.5% of their earnings. In 5 more years, it'll be 1% of their earnings. It'll be nothing. So it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be a big impact on them. And don't forget that's net profit. So that's their net profit going forward. And of course, when they pay out this thing, it's an expense. So it reduces their taxes and such also. So these settlements are really weird, actually. And that's again, a lot of people don't understand that when they're doing stocks, and they think that they don't understand how legal settlements work, and they always there's a great tendency to overly high expectations of what's going to happen. Bernie says, on Paramount, do you think Redstone will sell the company? Will they keep the dividend? I think she may live off the dividend. Yeah, my prediction on Paramount has long been that they will get bought, and now that they are lower, they are still going to get bought. So my expectation was they would get bought for somewhere between 25 and 30, and all of our bets are in there. And I thought they would get bought sometime in the first half of next year. Seems more likely now, not less likely, because the shareholders are going to jump at an offer. If you offer them $25 right now, they're going to jump at it. And that's, if you're going to be buying a company like that, you want to see that. Any thoughts of the trade of the year for next year? Oh yeah, I got a lot of them, but it's we got to figure it out. At the moment, the problem is it depends what gets away from us. But at the moment, I still like AT&T because of the Apple phone sales. They're going to be a huge boost for them for the next 2 quarters. I still like Simon Property Group because, oh my God, how can they be that cheap? SPG. Huge dividend, everything going for these guys. In the last month or so, yeah, recently they popped up. We were liking them back here. Last time I was talking about them was earlier in the month when I said I think this might be my trade of the year. They're significantly higher now. They're $20 higher now than they were when I was saying it. So they're probably going to be out of the running because they popped so much. But I still like them a lot. Walgreens, actually, now we have to look at them for contention also. There's Moderna, mRNA. They're still pretty low, just starting to come back a bit. So Moderna is, and again, Moderna is going to earn $10 billion next year, and you can buy the entire company for $60 billion. And I'm sorry, and that's not even really the whole story, because how much money does Moderna have in the bank? They have $7 billion in the bank net of debt. So they got $7 billion in the bank. They're going to make $10 billion this year. What is that? Oh, that's a dot on my that's a dot on my screen. I thought there was like a minus sign on the 3. There was like a little dot right here, and I was like, that can't be minus. They're not losing money. So they've actually got a pretty low expectation for next year of $3.6 billion, but still a very respectable amount of money to be making. And I think there's other treatments in the pipeline, and there's going to be more COVID shots. Pfizer just said there's going to be a lot more COVID shots than people are anticipating in the next year. And Moderna then would have the same story, and people don't realize that. I don't understand why they don't realize that. Labor, any thoughts on the makeup stocks here and why they hold so many treasuries? I don't know why they hold so many treasuries. That's weird. Can you help with suggestion for this orphan position? I cannot at the moment. We'll have to get back to that, hopefully. But where is the Fed? Are you ready to raise rates? Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. Oh, that was interesting too. The GDP now, look, the GDP now estimate for the fourth quarter is still way the frick up here at almost 3%. Still, the Fed still believes miles ahead, which indicates, of course, that there should not be a big, the rate hike should still be strong. Oh, there it is. I knew I had it somewhere. See, I was ready, but then I got to find it. What the hell? 2021. 2020. Oh, 2022. Thank you. So this is a statement, PDF, HTML. Dun, 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 dun. Let's skip ahead. Committee decided to raise target federal funds rate to 3.25% to 4%. The committee anticipates blah, 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 stance of monetary policy. Okay, great. So it's exactly what we thought. Recent indicators point to modest growth in spending and production. Job gains have been robust in recent months. Unemployment rates remain low. Inflation remains elevated, reflecting supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic, higher food and energy prices, and broader price. Now, how is this being taken? Oh, pretty good. Wow. I don't know why. All right, let's see. So, all right. So thing number one, there's two ways to fix inflation, right? Inflation is a problem where there's too much money chasing too few goods, right? You have too much supply of money, too little supply of goods. So the money gets bid up against the goods. So how do you fix that? Make more goods. The Fed is trying to decrease the money, like by killing the economy, to so that less money will be chasing the goods. And in my mind, it's like, why not just produce more goods? Why don't we concentrate on that? Grow the economy. Let the money have fun. It's a really big problem. I don't like the way they're handling it at all. Russia's war against the Ukraine is causing tremendous human and economic hardship. The war and related events are causing additional pressure on inflation and weighing on the global economic security. So, okay, so here's the thing that will eventually go away. And they're trying to make it go away by tightening policy, and that's stupid, right? They're obviously going to over tighten, because once that gets pulled out, it'll be different. So massive employment, bullshit, support these goals, bullshit, raising the rate. Committee anticipates ongoing increases will be appropriate in order to retain stance monetary policy and restrictive return inflation 2% over time. That's insane. You know, the chance us going from where we are now to 2% is a huge chasm. In determining the pace of future increases, the committee will take into account the tightening policy, the lags which the monetary policy affects activity and inflation, and the economic. Oh, that's good though. See, this is a good thing to take into account. These lags, that's a good thing to add from the last statement. In economic and financial developments, in addition, the committee will continue to reduce its holding of treasuries. They already said this, and agency debt, as described in the plan, blah, 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 which they wrote 6 months ago now. Or May, whatever that is, how many months? 4 months, 5. The committee is strongly committed to returning inflation to 2%. In assessing the appropriate stance, the committee will continue to monitor their implications. The committee will be prepared to adjust the stances appropriate if risks emerge that can impede the attainment of the committee's goals. The committee's assessments will take into account a wide range of information. Oh, that's nothing. That's very good, actually. Nobody objected. Okay, so that was a good flexible statement that shows the Fed is willing to listen to reason and isn't going to tighten at all costs. It's a little nicer. Now it depends on what Powell says at his conference, but I would take this as a, whoa, I would take this as a positive. Wow, look at the dollar. So what happened is that was not a very bearish statement. So the dollar drops because the Fed is wimping out on their status of raising constantly. And we'll find a comparison thing too, which is useful. And that's obviously pushing all the markets back. So much for yesterday's drop. And we're going to see if we can erase the week's drop. And the VIX is loving it, right? Very good there. Silver popping, gold popping somewhere, I'm sure. Gold, here's gold popping. Here's Simon Property Group, which I've been watching for whatever reason. Good. All right. Can you help me with FLGT? So this is Bruce saying, can you help with FLGT? FLGT, 60 call, blah, blah, blah. Asked yesterday, comment by mistake. Why would that be? Oh, you asking it? Oh, no. Please asking today's comment. So let's not do this in the webinar because it's not really a stock many people are going to care about. And I would rather stick on the Fed topic, right? So please drop it in the chat room and I'll get to it when I get done with the webinar. Because I got to look up a bunch of stuff. It'll take like 10 or 15 minutes and it's not, not what we want to spend the time on right now. So Wall Street Journal. Actually, my favorite thing to do is I like to look at the comparisons. Where's Twitter? Oh, is Elon Musk completely ruined it already? This is going to be so weird. You should be using login verification. Oh, please. Now, I Where is my check mark account? How can I tell? Home, PSW. See, that's me, PSW. I got a check mark. They're going to start charging me for this check mark. Bastards. It's funny, they were gonna charge 20, and then Stephen King's like, screw you, Elon Musk, and Elon Musk writes back to him, how about 8? So now it's $8 a month to keep your blue check mark. But the problem is, if they start selling the blue check marks for $8 a month to anybody, then who cares if I have one? They've diminished the value of me having a blue check mark. I have it because I'm a verified professional on Twitter and so on and so forth. And it means I have status and that my tweets mean more than somebody else's tweets and so on and so forth. Look, Elon Musk has a blue check mark. Is he going to pay? I wonder if he's going to pay. Yeah, AOC's got a blue check, but most of I don't follow too many people who don't have blue checks, frankly. Chris Hayes, Steve Burns, Zero Hedge, no, Zero Hedge never got a blue check. Beto got a blue check. Robert's got a blue check. Hi, Robert. Palmer Report, Dean. See, most of the people I follow. Rudy never got a blue check. Interesting. See, he's super well known. Seth Abramson's got a blue check. Zero Hedge doesn't participate, right? You said that. Really interesting. It is a nightmare to get a blue check, by the way, because Greg did it. If I had to do it, I never would have gotten it. Because you have to go, it's a paperwork nightmare. Samantha, I like her, she didn't have a blue check. Bloomberg got a blue check. You gotta have people to get a blue check. You're not gonna go through the hassle yourself. It's just such a bother. Anyway. And that's the point, though. But because it was such a hassle, you do kind of take it seriously. And if they're just going to start selling them now, that's not the point. And meanwhile, who did the math? It was like, I think Colbert did the math, and he was saying like it comes out to $45 million a year if everybody pays for the blue check marks who has them, and that means it'll take 1,000 years for Elon to get his money back. They're screwed. And by the way, we did the math in chat. These guys are going to have to pay $1 billion a year in debt service for the amount of money he borrowed to make this deal happen. And the company doesn't even make $1 billion. So this company is going to basically take this company that used to make $1 billion will now make zero because he did a leverage buyout with a debt, and that's going to eat into all the profits. All the money that the company makes will go to paying off the debt. Now, he makes himself CEO and takes the $10 million salary and whatever, which is nice. So now that's his. That was already part of the expenses. But, you know, he's cut off the company's cash supply. It's terrible. I don't know if he's got more money to put in or if his partners have more money to put in or what they even think they're going to do with this thing. You know, it's not like Twitter wasn't trying to make more money. There just wasn't a really good way to make money. Apparently, they're going to litter it with ads now. So we'll see. What was I here for, though? Oh, yeah, I was here for the Fed. FOMC. See, but this is what Twitter's good for. See? How nice. All right, so this is key. This is all new. In order to attain stance was sufficiently reflective to return 2% over time, in determining the pace of increases, the target range committee will take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy, the lags, and that's why I said this is new, the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity. So in other words, they are going to pay attention to the fact that they may be over tightening even if they haven't hit their range yet, and that is hugely good news. And that's really the only change. Everything else is basically the exact same statement. Why is that underlined, I wonder? It's not like it was changed. So last time it was 3 to 3 1/4. Now it's 3 1/4. Now it's what? Oh, I see. That's I don't like what he did. Anyway, so last time it was 3, 2, 3, and 1/4. So 3 to 3 3/4 was the last one. Now it is 3 and 3/4 to 4%. That's really horrifyingly confusing. But I mean, that's how typeouts work. But anyway, so this is the whole of the statement that matters, and the thing that really matters here is the lags. It's a little thing, but that's what's making everybody happy now. They're saying they are going to look ahead and they are going to stop tightening when they see the policies are starting to take effect. They're not going to wait until after they take effect and hit their goal. And that's a big difference. That's a 6-month difference in when they'll stop. So when will they stop? And again, I've said this already, they will stop in June of next year when rates go to 6%. Tom says, I'm pretty sure Musk already paid for his check mark. Yeah, he paid 40-something billion for it, $44 billion for his check mark. But, you know, hey, shouldn't really exempt yourself, right? Well, that's not true. I don't pay for membership to PhilStockWorld, do I? So I guess we'll give a pass on that. He just annoys me though. Anyway, so where are we? That was Twitter. See, thank you, Twitter. That's what Twitter's good for though. It's like when you want to know something that's really topical right away and you don't want to wait for like the Wall Street Journal, you go to Twitter. It's great for that kind of stuff. And I've got I filter, I've got my people. Well, let's see, if I go home, I got my people who I follow. I don't follow many people, actually. Does it say who I follow? I've got 400,000 followers. I follow 400 people. There you go. There's 400 people that I follow, and I am ruthless because if you send me one cat photo, you're gone. You know, it's like, this is my business tweets. I only care about the things that matter in the markets. So, what are these? These are, so anyway, so hopefully my Twitter feed does not have a lot of junk. It just has people I actually care what they have to say. Oh, look, Greta wants to overthrow capitalism. Good for her. I gotta join her team. Let's see. So as you can see, no cat photos. Okay, I accept that. See, I do that myself, so I can't complain about that. It's like sending me boys to men. Well, I always find it interesting when two people send the same. Oh, it's Bloomberg twice. If two people send the same exact thing, I always wonder what, you know, it must be something significant. And now we'll see what Powell has to say. But anyway, so my feed is 400 people where I actually do care what I want to hear from them. And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make with Twitter. Is it's a really useful tool as a business tool, but you have to have a business account where like that's all you have. You can't mix it in with personal friends and crap like that. But if you just want to know about your industry or what's going on from people who you actually respect, that's what I do. And I actually use Twitter a lot for that reason. I use Twitter, and the way I use Twitter though is I use my Facebook, not Facebook, what do you call it? Flipboard. Flipboard should work on this machine, I imagine. Log into Flipboard. What? Oh, so annoying. What's that? Nope, don't like that. Are you gonna let me in or you? Oh man, there was a server error. Oh well, that's a shame. Oh well. So the point where I was going to show you my Twitter feed. But anyway. So what it does is Flipboard will take your Twitter feed and essentially turn it into a magazine sort of thing like this. It's better on an iPad, frankly, as an app. But effectively what it does is all the articles that come to me through Twitter, instead of me reading it in Twitter, it brings them up and turns them into proper magazine kind of articles, which I like a lot. So that way I get my Twitter news, and I can sit with my iPad on the couch and I can read everything just bit by bit and flip through it like it's a magazine. So it's much more enjoyable to read like that. But again, it definitely needs an iPad to do it, or I guess the app might be on. I wouldn't know what it does on an Android. So there. Okay, there's that. So now let's see what the Wall Street Journal is saying in their analysis. So we just got over a major hump, though. That was huge. Hints at smaller hikes. Yeah, you see they're reading into it. They said no such thing. They did say, though, that they will pay attention to conditions and they'll slow down eventually. But like I was saying, what I expect is when we should be here in June. The next hike should be a 0.5 point. They might give us a break around Christmas because it's December rate hike. The next hike would hopefully be a 0.5 point. And after that, I assume they're going to have 3 more hikes. So a 0.5 point's going to take us to here to 4.5. And then we've got 3 hikes at the beginning of the year. Where's that Fed calendar thing? Did we lose it? No, here it is. So hopefully this goes to 2023 at some point. 2020, 2022, next year. 2023. So January, March, and May. Okay, so if we imagine that, and whoa, where the heck were we just looking at that? Oh, in the journal. So we're currently at, well, now we're at 4. Okay, we go to 4.5 in December, and then I'm thinking most likely will be another 3 hikes of a 0.5 point each next year, assuming inflation cools off a bit, and we'll be at 6. And just about when we're at 6, we should probably see the CPI inflation crossing below 6.2 in June. And that's when the Fed will stop. That's when they'll say that they feel, they're going to pause or stop or whatever. They'll say it's done. And as long as the momentum keeps going down, they will have in fact have engineered a fairly soft landing. So this is good. I mean, I'm pleased they've taken the pressure off a little bit. It was getting a little bit annoying. And like I said, if they're going to keep being crazy, it's kind of hard to hold on to all of our positions, no matter how well they're doing. And that reminds me, you have the short-term portfolio. Gosh. So our short-term portfolio is up at $3.1 million. And we made some changes yesterday, but nothing significant. Nothing's going to alter the money. What we've done is we took about almost that much cash, about $800,000 in cash, and we moved it here to the security value in order to make ourselves less bullish. I mean, market bullish. Because it's just, look, for one thing, you make too much money. I mean, we made, oh Jesus, I mean, what were we? Control F, STP. So 2.6, it's up $500,000 since the last report. That's since the 17th, that's a few weeks. Because what did we do? Here's the key thing. We took the 300 2024 30s of SQQQ off the table. These. See the $940,000? We cashed those out. And we cashed them out at the exact time that this thing turned. So we nailed the top of the market right there. We got our 31 bucks and we got out of this position. That put $1 million more cash into the portfolio. We replaced it with $175,000 of the 2025 60-90 spreads. Okay, so but the thing is, when you have a spread, especially when the net of the spread is only 350, it's not going to move much when the market goes up and down. Okay, the protection is there over the long term, and I hope, please God, after running these portfolios for a few years, you see that, right? The net of the spread doesn't have to change. What we count on is over time, the premium leaches out of the position, and if you manage to get yourself in the right position, you will make a freaking fortune. That's what this is. That's what this 1,200% profit is. It's all this premium decay. We're taking positions with massive premium that we're selling, and if we manage it correctly, we're going to make the premium money. It's almost guaranteed to make the premium money. And then and then the 300 short 60s, had put a stop on it. Fortunately, we didn't go that far, and we just cashed those out though. And we rolled the loss on the W's. And again, that I should probably do the same thing with that as I did with the other portfolio, with the long-term portfolio, and roll it into the other stocks. And that's it. So the big move that we made here was taking this $1 million right here. And I can't highlight it, it's a picture. So we took this $1 million here and we cashed it out. That's $1 million long. So we took $1 million long off our portfolio, and we flipped ourselves by just doing that one move. We made ourselves much more bullish on the market because of those SQQ longs that we took off. So we moved ourselves into a very long-term neutral position. Then the market took off, so that's how we made $500,000 in a couple of weeks. Now, though, that we made the $500,000 yesterday, can I find yesterday? Yesterday, STP, here it is. So yesterday we looked at the portfolio, and it was the same basic 3.13. And I said, look, we're up. This is what you got to look at. We're up $300,000. Where the hell? On the 50 calls. I'm sorry, down here. So see these 50 calls right here. We're up $300,000 on those. Oh, what was I saying? On the long 202-450 calls, the 202-450 calls. Why do you say we're up 300,000? That's weird. I don't know where I got 300 from one of these other ones. Anyway, whatever. We're up on these 50 calls. And we're up on these calls too. Oh, that's where we were up $350,000. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean these. So I said we're up 350,000. It was 376 at the time it printed. I must have been looking at the current price. So I said we're up $350,000 on these calls, and we're up $800,000. There you go. And we're up $800,000. See that one on these calls, on the short calls. So we're up on the long calls and we're up on the short calls. So since we're up $1 million combined dollars, or more than $1 million combined dollars, cash it in. Just cash it in and then think about how you're going to best be hedged. But when you have a chance to take $1 million in profit off the table, when you're uncertain about your positions, which way you should be hedging, cash it in. That's the answer. Take the profit. The profit is your hedge. So like I said, it's not going to affect anything drastically right now. Those positions haven't changed much, but it's a smart thing to do. So now we have another $1 million in cash in the portfolio. I'm sorry, we have $1 million in profit in the portfolio. We're locking it in. I'm sorry, we don't have the cash. What we're doing though is to buy them back. We're moving the cash from here to here. So this is minus 700. We're going to take 800 basically, and that. So we're going to have 3 million cash on hand. Total value still 3 million, but we're moving the obligation around and changing the position. And it makes us much more bearish in the short term. And for TZA, same things. We're buying back the short 60 calls and the $670 calls. And again, rebalancing to change our position so that our balance is now more towards covering the long-term portfolio, because we have a huge amount of gains. We're up to 5 million combined dollars, right? We got 3 million here and 2 million in the long-term portfolio. We're at 5 million bucks. We were at $4 million before. Let's see, which one's this? No, Control F, STP. So 2.6, right? And the LTP, 1.5. So we were at 4.2 million 2 weeks ago, and we made $800,000, 20%. That's fine. That's normal. That's what all our portfolios made, 20%. There's nothing. It sounds great, right? It sounds fantastic. It's really only 20%. We made 20% though in the last couple of weeks as the market recovered. Why? Because we reversed our hedges and we played it much more bullish. We got the bullish move that we expected. And now we have to say, oh my God, now we have $5 million. So presto, there's $800,000. So should we spend another $500,000 to lock that in? Should we add $500,000 more hedges to lock it in? Or should we maybe just take the cash off the table because it's getting harder and harder to defend? And not that we can't defend $5 million. We can defend any amount that we want, but it would require a lot of gymnastics, and we're not sure. It's hard to read this market. So into the Fed, we took a chance today, not cashing out the long-term portfolio into the Fed. I've been talking to the members about it and saying, hey, I think I want to cash out. I also want to cash out because it's hard to manage after. You can't help it. It's like as the portfolios go on in time, you end up with a lot of positions. A long-term portfolio. Dun 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 dun. Hello. I'm gonna say it has 80 positions. We have 30 short puts. That's gonna be more than that. We have 30 short puts, and we have 75 spreads plus these two guys. So that's 105 different positions in the long-term portfolio. Why? Because over time, that's just what you end up with. So forget these. These don't matter. These are just short puts. That's like a watch list, basically. You know, and that's how things work. We have a watch list, and then we move something from the watch list to basically a short put. That's usually our first leg of buying a spread. And then if we decide we want to stick with that, then we turn it into a spread. Now, it has been 3 years. This is year number 3. So we're now into the 3rd year of the long-term portfolio. I usually want to keep it less than 60 positions. We have 75. You can say, okay, fine, cut 15. We've been through 3 major purges in the long-term portfolio since it started. And each time I was looking very hard to try to find things to cash out. These are the survivors. And this is the problem we have every time we get back to a long-term portfolio. These are the surviving positions. There really are not that many positions I want to cut. These are all great positions that I have a lot of faith in for the long term. I just don't know, and please comment and chat about this, because don't comment here. I want to comment and chat, and let's talk about this. It's exhausting to keep this many positions. It's exhausting to review them constantly. I don't think it's the best use of my time, frankly. I think it's better to research new positions, even if it's the same stocks over and over again. It's what's good to buy right now. That's useful. If you have a question on a position, you can always ask me a question on a position. I don't have to have these portfolios with all these positions. Not everybody's going to have all of them. We're not all tracking them together. They're not much useful for new members who come in because there's so many and they're so old. you know, these are all good stocks. So I mean, if it could be used as it is. This is effectively a list of all good stocks and good positions that we like, and the ones that haven't gone drastically green, like Boeing. Here Boeing's too green. This one's kind of green, but then you find one like well, Alibaba is a problem, so that's possible purging. Here, Best Buy kind of neutral, so therefore probably good for a new trade. Big Lots, loss, could be good for a new trade. Boyd kind of got away. CIM is obviously cheap, so that's one that could be picked up. CLF, but you can't buy everything just because it's going badly. So each one has to be reevaluated constantly. The thing is, though, at this point with so many positions, I mean, I would be a lot more inclined to just cash it out, have $5 million, put that away, and then start with a new $1 million in the long-term and short-term portfolio. But again, I'm honestly not really into like starting a new portfolio again, because I'd rather just be able to put trades up like top trade alerts are, and just put trades together, talk about companies, talk about why we're investing in them. And of course, we'll go back and we'll review them and look at them. But the concentration, I think, should be more on like, let's identify trades now on a regular basis. Because at this point, I'm stuck. I can't have more positions in the LTP. I don't care how good something is. I got no room in this portfolio for more positions. It's ridiculous. And it takes me days to do a review of the long-term portfolio, days, every month, just to do the review of the long-term portfolio. That's crazy. I honestly could do better things for you than maintain portfolios. And there's honestly no need for it. It's better, it's better if we just pick things and say, here, today I like this is good, and in a couple of months we can review it, or if you ever have a question, ask it. Say, hey, Phil, I did this position that you recommended on such and such a day, and here's where we are. What do you think? That's more interesting than what we do here, where we just keep reviewing all these same positions over and over and over again. But anyway, so let's have your thoughts in chat about this, and we'll make a decision in the near future. Although we currently have a reprieve because the market is liking what the Fed is saying. And now we got to see what Powell's saying. Oh, Powell is talking. I forgot about him. I knew there was something else going on. All right, let's see. Where is my remote? Oh no, he's ruining it already. Look at this. Oh, Jerry. Look, dollar. See the dollar's turning around. The things are coming down. But that's, again, it's why it's such a frustrating market to call. It's so annoying to play this thing. Home? Yes, no? Update in progress. Oh, thanks. Do not press any buttons on the remote. Keep your remote close to the thing. Do not remove the batteries. Okay. Seems like a lot. Update completed. Wow, that wasn't too long. All right, so what do we want to do? We wanted to try to watch CNBC. Oh. Or Bloomberg, I guess, is acceptable. Okay. Oh boy, it's been so long since I used his office TV. Wow. Okay, I'm having trouble. I guess we'll have to just get a play-by-play somewhere else. It's probably live TV.
How will we know that we've reached?
There he is.
Level taken to, bear on that question.
Okay. How? Ultimate rate level higher than previously expected. Well, we know that though. I've been saying 6% for months. Jesus. Expected by people who don't understand how inflation works. Is he answering questions or is he just speaking? What? Hello?
What I want to do is put that question of pace in the context of our
Will there be another 75-point increase?
And to talk about the statement language along. So I think you can think about our tightening program as really addressing three questions. The first of which was, and has been, how fast to go. The second is how high to raise our policy rate. And the third will be eventually how long to remain at a restricted level. So on the first question, how fast to tighten policy, it's been very important that we move expeditiously, and we have clearly done so. We've moved 3.75% since March, admittedly from a base of 0. It's a historically fast pace, and that's certainly appropriate, given the persistence and strength in inflation and the low level from which we started. So now we come to the second question, which is how high to raise our policy rate, and we're saying that we raise that rate to a level that's sufficiently restricted to bring inflation to our 2% target over time, and we put that into our post-meeting statement. Because that really does become the important question we think now is how far to go, and I'll talk more about that. We think there's some ground to cover, but before we meet that test, and that's why we say that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate. And as I mentioned, incoming data between the meetings, both the strong labor market report, but particularly the CPI report, do suggest to me that we may ultimately move to higher levels than we thought at the time of the September meeting. That level is very uncertain though, and I would say, we're going to find it over time. With the lag between policy and
kidding me.
a lot of uncertainty. So we note that in determining the pace of future increases, we'll take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy as well as the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity and inflation. So I would say as we come closer to that level, move more into restrictive territory, the question of speed becomes less important than the second and third questions. And that's why I've said at the last two press conferences that at some point it will become appropriate to slow the pace of increases. So that time is coming, and it may come as soon as the next meeting or the one after that. No decision has been made. It is likely we'll have a discussion about this.
They will slow the pace at the next meeting or the one after that is what he's saying.
Again, the question of when to moderate the pace of increases is now much less important than the question of how high to raise rates and how long to keep monetary policy restricted, which really will be our principal focus.
If I could follow up on that, to what degree was there an importance or weight given to?
Okay,
this possibility now?
So it's exactly what I was just saying. In other words, they realize now that they have to go past 4.5%, which was their original target. They're going to figure out the same thing that I'm telling you, which is 6% is the correct amount. And it doesn't matter what the amount is. What's going to happen, the point at which the Fed funds rate, which is now 4%, crosses the CPI, which is now 9%. That is the point at which they will stop. I think that point will come in June, and I'm taking into account the fact that the war will either wind down or normalize. So a war doesn't have to end to normalize the commodities, right? You get into a new sort of order where the gas to Europe is worked out, whether it comes back to Putin or whether they get another source. Within 6 months, they're going to figure something out to make it go. And it's more like 9 months, really. It's a while from now. So by June, the grains will normalize, the shipments will or normalize. And by the way, normalize is several things. I mean, normalize for one thing is finding some other source. It's saying, okay, we're not getting grain from the Ukraine, therefore we're gonna start making this kind of bread instead of that kind of bread. We're gonna do this instead of that. We're gonna make the chefs are gonna make less. They're gonna give less bread at the restaurants. Something else will come into fashion for an appetizer. That's what happens after several months of something happening. You know, at first everybody's like, oh my God, I gotta buy grain. You can't cut my wheat shipments from the Ukraine. I need the wheat to make this and that, right? But after 3 months of that at high prices, Procter and Gamble and Kellogg and people like that start saying, oh no, we'll make this and that cereal instead and put those on special instead of the ones that are wheat heavy. And the bakers too, they say, well, we're going to use the less wheat intensive recipes. And the restaurants say, okay, well, we're not going to make so many things that require us to make bread and stuff. It'll be a lot less intensive for that. This is how food has always changed from culture to culture across the centuries. It's based on what's available. You know, it's hard for some people. It's hard for McDonald's to say we're not going to make bread. We're not going to have bread hamburgers anymore, but they might change the shape of their bun to have 25% less bread, and all of a sudden, all of the Ukraine's grain is no longer needed. You know, this is a mistake that many people, including OPEC, make when they think about that they have all this power. Is they overplay their hands and they force conditional changes on the consumers that become permanent. That's demand destruction that we talked about earlier. Meanwhile, the market is back to Dow 151, S&P up 5, and NASDAQ is down 15. And we don't really care about, as long as the S&P is over 3840 and it's 3860 at the moment, we don't care. That's fine. As long as we're holding that line on the S&P 500 that we've been tracking. The NASDAQ, I'd like to see in better shape. We talked about that earlier. But, you know, it's 3860 right here, and 3840 is that week retrace line. If we're up here, okay, the 50-day moving average is here. We want that 50-day to come back up, but when it does come back up, if we can stay above this line, the 50-day moving average will come back up over the line, right? If we're above the line, how could the moving average stay below the line? This becomes the average, right? After 50 days, it certainly becomes the average. So the longer we're above this line, this 50-day moving average will curve back up. Once it curves back up, you're into this. See here, we went below the line, and then we come back over the line. And once it starts curving back up, you've got a very powerful tailwind going. And by the way, you see this? Look what happened here. That's what this looked like back here. The same pattern, right? It looked like it was going to fail, but then it didn't fail, and we went up and up and kept going. So we could have this same situation for a massive Santa Claus rally. Is another reason we haven't cashed out yet, is because want to see what the Fed does, want to see how this line holds up, want to see how earnings are playing out. But if we can stay up here and this thing can hold it together, then we could have some actually a very positive thing. And when this happened, when we're over the 50-day moving average here and started curving back up, we were also way up here on RSI, and we stayed up there and went higher. Right now, RSI is up here. Relative strength indicator. That's what this is. How strong is the market? So this has been a massive, look at all the red. Look how much red that is. That is 4-to-1, I would say, about 4-to-1 red. Since mid-September, it's been 4-to-1 red, and we're in the same spot. That's a lot of negative days, yet we're still in the same place. It will not take much of a sentiment change for us to start really rallying. And if we get a rally like this, we'll be right back at this 200-day moving average. So the gist of what Powell is saying right now. Oh, now the Dow's back to 63. It's like this depends on whatever the last sentence he says is. But the gist of what Powell's saying here is that they will eventually, and this is what's going to sink in, they will eventually cut back. This will not keep going forever. And maybe you thought it was going to be 4.5 and now it's going to be 6 or whatever, but it still means it will end. This will pass, the war will pass, inflation will drop down, and the supply chain bottlenecks are working their way out. Nobody doesn't think that's happening. In fact, if you look at the Baltic Dry Index, because here's your recession. Where are we? All right, so look at what's happening to container costs. Okay, we're coming back to like below the the lows in recent times on container costs, and that's I mean that's a massive difference, and that's very anti-inflationary there. It also indicates, of course, less trade. This is dry goods shipping, basically the cost of leasing ships for the to move dry goods across the sea. It's a big factor in inflation, and the trucking will come down. You know, as these bottlenecks work out, everything starts coming down and getting normalized in pricing again. And then the last barrier is going to be the fuel, and that's very much war dependent right now. I mean, these electric trucks and electric planes should be scaring the shit out of OPEC. It is horrifying for them. You know, it takes a long time though. In fact, oh, you know, it's funny. Speaking of Meta like 20 minutes ago. You know, we're still backing Meta because I think eventually virtual reality will be a thing that's worth money, and I don't think Musk is wasting his money investing in the metaverse, in building a major metaverse hub. But he's early for sure. And why is he early? Well, first of all, Sony just put out a virtual reality headset, but overall, China is attempting to produce, I think, 25 million VR headsets next year. 25 million. Facebook has 4 billion users, and they're going to make 25 million VR headsets. That's a limit to how many people can get on the metaverse. You know, just like Xboxes, right? You make Xboxes because people suddenly want to play these games, and there's only so many you can make in a year, though. Not everybody can get one who wants one. That's how you get shortages at Christmas. Doesn't matter how much you want one, you can't get one unless people make it. And right now we still have the chip shortages and so on and so forth. But again, when you look at these chip companies that are hurting, and you think about all this extra stuff that's going to get made to have people have these VR headsets and other things that are going to be in the house and the controllers and so on and so forth, it's chips. Suddenly you're at a computer and you've got a left controller and a right-hand controller and a headset controller that are all going to need chips. You're like basically doubling the amount of chips that are currently in your computer. So they say computer sales are slowing, but now you're going to operate your computer with all this VR crap. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And that's going to bring these chip companies right back. And I think right now there's a lot of negative talk on the chip companies to make you feel, oh my God, what did he say? Oh, very premature to talk about pausing rate hikes. This is the problem with the Q&A session, man. Holy crap. Do you see what the Dow just did? Wow, that was the worst thing he could have said. He said it's very premature to talk about pausing rate hikes, and this is what happened in seconds. Wow. That's from 33.1 to 32.4. That's 700 points in minutes. Oh, now 38.40. That's what we got to hold. We got to hold that 38.40 line now. Wow, what a bummer. Oh my God. Does he not know this is going to happen? It may take time to resolve it. You have to patience to get inflation down. Oh my God. Oh, you son of a bitch. He just totally crashed the market. Just when it was starting to do better. Oh, well, there's a madman loose. Like I said, market too crazy to predict. Very hard to predict our portfolios. We just made the short-term portfolio more bearish, and we will see how good it is at protecting the long-term portfolio for the rest of the week. But next week, if I'm not satisfied that we can maintain that $5 million balance, because that was my goal. And I said this a year ago, I said it 6 months ago again, we were hovering around $4 million for a while. And I said, when we get to $5 million, that's all I have, that's it, we're done. We're at $5 million, we hit it. And that's done. Okay, the rest is just ridiculous greed, and we're trying to play a game in an environment where we could just as easily lose $1 million as make $1 million. And that's stupid. There's certain times when you want to cash out, and this is a great time to go to silence. When this kind of crap can happen, when you can see this happening, just based on a couple of words somebody says in 10 seconds, it's not a good investing environment. You really got to be much more protective of what you got. And we will see how that goes for the rest of the week. We'll see how this ends up. I'm going to go back to the chat room. We're going to discuss this a little bit more. And we'll do this again next week and see where we are. But and next week I'm going to have a much firmer idea. But please talk about in chat what you think about the portfolios. Like I said, my preference, go back to cash and concentrate more on plays at any given time rather than worrying about 75 positions and what they're all doing. All right, I'd rather find 5 positions this week that are worth adding than worrying about the old 75 positions. All right. Thanks a lot for coming, everybody. I appreciate it, and have a good week. Take care.